A large model Showman'S engine. This is part 66. With the steam pipe leak fixed and the second check valve ball removed, it is time for another live steam test. I'm not going to speak much through this steam test, I really don't need to. For instance, it is obvious that I am oiling up the engine like I've done many times. Less obvious, I'm filling the boiler using a hose pipe, which fits on the end of the blowdown valve. This is a large boiler and it takes a surprisingly long time to fill it. Unlike you do in the middle of the afternoon with the hose pipe attached to the blowdown valve, I'm just sitting for a while watching the water gauge. It seemed to be taking a long time, and indeed it was, because the hose pipe had fallen off the blowdown valve. I refitted the hose pipe correctly this time, and now, as you can see, the water is going up the glass. I'm going to modify this water gauge because I find it very difficult to see without using a torch. If you have a small or medium-sized traction engine, this is quite a good tip. I'm using what's left of an old brass bed that I used to have to feed the wood and charcoal into the firebox. This is, of course, before I lit the fire. As you can see, I'm pushing pieces of wood into the tube. This tube is actually a bit small, so I bought a much bigger tube from Blackgates Engineering, but that's too big. In the end, I bought a piece of plastic fall pipe, which is 2.5 inches in diameter, and when that finally arrives, it should do the trick. I'm never going to be using it when the engine's hot anyway. The idea is just to feed the wood and the charcoal into the firebox using the tube. As the brass tube that I'm using isn't big enough, I'm having to shovel the charcoal into the firebox. This is not so bad, it's just a bit messy. I drop a lot of it on the floor of the bunker. And some pieces of the charcoal that are dropped near the fire hole stop the fire hole door from closing. How do I light the fire? Well, it's quite simple. I put some charcoal on my shovel with a very small amount of paraffin, and then I tip this lot into the firebox. You don't need a lot of paraffin, and you must not, I repeat, you must not use petrol for this operation. With the fire now lit, I continue shoveling some of the paraffin-soaked charcoal onto the fire. I think it's time to fill the bunker tank with some coal. I haven't put any coal on the fire yet, but it won't be long before I put a few shovelfuls of this on. The fire is drawing very well owing to this electric blower that I sit on the chimney. This provides a draft, and without it, flames do come out of the firehole door and burn my hand. It's quite a warm day, but it's still going to take a while to raise steam, so there's nothing I can do for about an hour. Time to oil the engine. The nearest shop to where I live is about 6 miles away. And it's not too bad, I just get into my car, start the engine and drive there and back. If the alternative was to use this traction engine to get to the shop, I'd probably buy a horse. Or maybe a steam car. They have special boilers that raise steam quickly. This, by the way, is a close-up shot of the oiling operation at both ends. These hatches in the roof are not present in a full-size traction engine, but it was one of the features that sold me on this engine because it makes lubrication of all the parts extremely easy. And the canopy with its associated hatches is really well made, just like the rest of this engine. I'm trying to oil as many points as possible. Even the regulator needs a bit of oil from time to time. There are also quite a few oil reservoirs to fill. These supply oil to the transmission and the pump ram of the crankshaft-driven pump. I think these hatches are really neat, and you can see how well thought out they were. There is a small amount of pressure showing on the pressure gauge. It's time to put some more coal into the firebox. I know it sounds a bit stupid, but it's very easily done. If you're running a miniature steam locomotive or traction engine, you forget to put the coal on. In a similar way, I decided to teach myself how to play the flute, and I was never much good at it. The main problem being, I used to forget to blow, because it's something that's very alien to me, being a keyboard player. Note to self, when playing a flute, it is no good if you do not blow, because no notes will come out of it. It's time to try this most excellent small steam pump, which immediately bursts into life as soon as I open the valve. The slight water leaks on the top of the pump are nothing to worry about. The main thing is I fixed the steam pipe that I badly silver soldered and showed in the last steam test. And now that's working fine. I'm going to try the injector. The pressure gauge is showing around 100 pounds per square inch pressure in the boiler. It's designed to run at 110, so I think it's a good time to test the injector. I open the water valve, let plenty of water flow through the injector to cool it, then gently open the steam valve. And the injector finally picked up. The water from the overflow is still dripping a little bit, but it is injecting water into the boiler. It's still not right though. So I phoned David English, the son of Don English, who makes these injectors, and he couldn't shed any light on the problem, but he recommended that I speak to a man called John Rex about it. So I phoned the company called John Rex and spoke to a man called Sam. I told him the problem, and he said the only time they'd ever had any problems was with insufficient steam pressure from the turret. So I'll look into that, but at least it is injecting. It's just a little bit too touchy for my liking, but at least I have the steam pump and the crankshaft driven pump to feed water into the boiler. A few viewers have said, well, when are you going to run this on the road then? The answer is, I will now have a reliable water feed, but I do have a problem. How do I film it whilst I'm driving it? On the last steam test, I gave the camera to my friend Rob to get some pictures, but not one of them was usable in the video. I think I'm going to have to pay a professional to get the images that I require. I'm 70 years old in January and in general reasonable health, but I am finding management of this engine a little bit more difficult when I climb all over it. The engine is insured and taxed for the road, so basically it's ready to go. I'm going to leave you with this image of the injector actually injecting. The reason it knocked off here was the boiler was full. And that is it for the narration on this one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it interesting. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.